All right, welcome back. This is part three in our conversations about recalls. I'm talking with Dr. Morrine Omolo, a good friend of mine. We've already talked about some basics or foundational understandings about recalls, and we've talked about being ready for a recall, being prepared, building a recall team, a recall response team. And now we're going to be talking about being in the middle of a recall, which is something that no
Mm,
one says, I hope to be in the middle of a recall. But what we
right.
do know is that the number of recalls that happen, even to the biggest of companies, is nothing to ignore. And so with us again is Dr. Marina Molo. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we've talked about this before, but a recall, and you work at a food manufacturing company, a recall is a real
Mhm.
concern that could happen to you or even to one of your competitors at any moment. I would imagine that's something that's on your mind on a regular basis.
Of course it is. And I like the general understanding that food safety is not competitive in the industry. I think most of our colleagues are cordial with one another and we talk and we share information for that reason. You don't wake up one day and say, I'm planning for a recall today. It happens to you. And the more you're prepared to our, based on the previous video, we talked about being prepared, do everything you can, but sometimes you will find yourself in that situation. And I'm going to start off by saying I have not been through a recall in any of my current role or my previous role. However, I do have friends that I respect dearly who have been through this situation and have been generous enough to share their personal experiences. And I've learned a lot from that. What I do want to share is that I have been through crises, different kinds of crises. And a recall is a crisis. And one of the things that best advice I ever got from a friend of mine was um, is to be in the eye of the storm. That's the value of the recall team or food safety team or crisis management team, because as I said before, a recall is a crisis. Being in the eye of the storm means you're the most calm person, you're the most calm group in the space at the table. The world is falling apart around you. A lot of information is coming at you. And as we discussed at the beginning, our goal is to get as much information as we can and make quick decisions to potentially save lives. If you join the panic and the frenzy and everybody's panicking, what we do is we're not only losing valuable time, but we're also failing to capture critical data. So being in the eye of the storm allows you to feel what's going on, but it also gives you something to do with that energy. And it allows you to capture critical data that then informs decisions. So it is not fun, obviously, being and living through a recall. But the focus should shift very quickly to, as we said before, damage control, which is a combination of saving lives to the extent that we can and collecting data to make sure that when we come out the other end, which is what I assume we'll be talking about next, we have learned our lesson, learned critical information that can help us improve our processes, improve our systems. It's very real that you can go through a recall and come out the other end and be exactly the same as you went in, if not worse.
Well, and imagine the idea of it's not only the individual, it's the team. It's how well the team works together, whether it's the
Yes.
legal team, the
Mm-hmm.
communications team, the QA, the food safety quality assurance team, the leadership team,
Mm-hmm.
quite honestly,
Yep.
even the finance, even security, you name it. We need money to do this. We have
Mm-hmm.
to replace this. We have to do this. Now's not the time to be figuring out that you can't have adequate conversations within your team to resolve these issues in a timely manner and have the idea that you're all on the same page in terms of the same exact goal. I've literally worked with companies where the the VP of Food Safety and Quality Assurance would butt heads against the director of finance because they needed to do something for in the name of food safety, and the director of finance is like, I don't think so. That's going to cost too much money. You shouldn't have those moments. There should be no there should be no scenario where leadership finds themselves in conflict with each other when it comes to something as foundational as food safety.
Indeed. And then it goes back to, of course, companies have values, and those value systems drive decisions. It is fair, though, to think about what a crisis situation does. Crisis brings out the best and the worst in people. And so I thrive on building relationships, personal ones and professional ones, because I think as a food safety professional, I cannot ensure the safety of a product. It's not my job to do that. It's my job to coordinate teams to make sure that that goal is achieved. And so, to the extent that the recall team can understand where they fit in the broader narrative and understand who are the key players, who are the key decision makers at those critical moments, who needs to make a decision about this and who needs to make a decision about that, and be in communication and open relationships with those people so that this person is not getting your phone call for the first time in the middle of a crisis. They don't know who you are, never heard your name. And especially for the really, really big companies, it can be a nightmare where you're trying to reach the one person that needs to make a decision and they're out of the country and you don't know whatever cell phone number they're using while they're traveling.
Yeah. Well, going back to that baseball analogy we've used in other elements of this series, it's not just the people who are right there on the field or on the court with you. It's also your other team members who may be off the field and perhaps in different cities and different states and even different countries, but they're all part of the same team and you all have to work together on this very specific element.
Right. And again, the recall team, it's not their job to manage the recall. It's their job to narrow down the conversations and focus the energy of the teams. Their job is to find out what needs to be done and then delegate the doing. So figuring out what needs to be done is hard because everybody has something to do. And sometimes operations don't stop, right? So there's the day-to-day that needs to happen. And then there's this other big thing happening over here. So who do you pull from their role? Who has to stop what they're doing for today and tomorrow's goals and focus on the here and now? Those are not decisions that you make after you get the visit from FDA or you get a call from a customer. These are things that need to be pre-planned to the extent possible, practiced so that people know, no, I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert, I prefer to make phone calls, I prefer to send emails. Because imagine if you don't like talking to people on the phone and now you have to give a press conference because that's your job. How do you get in front of press and talk about this devastating loss that you just caused in the community in a way that's candid but also respectful if you've never practiced it and if you're not a people person? There are a lot of things that we take for granted about recalls. Media presence is one of them. You just assume that you'll ride the wave. No. Sometimes you find out about a recall because somebody posted it on Facebook, right? By then, it's already out of your control, right?
Very good point. Very good point. Well, thank you very much. Obviously, the team has to work as a team. They have to keep their head in the game and obviously have a clear definition of what the prize is. That I think is perhaps the difference between misinformation, lack of information, and adequate, effective communication of information, not only within the team, but to those who are impacted as consumers during a recall. Anyway, Morrine Omolo, thank you very much. We're going to come back for one last episode. We're going to be looking at thoughts about after a recall. Please join us again.